You do not stay because of love. You stay because of something deeper that you do not dare to name. Maybe you have sat alone in that familiar room, the warm yellow light touching the wall, wondering why you are still here. Why a relationship that drains you, steals your peace piece by piece, makes your chest feel heavy as if someone has placed a stone on it, still cannot make you walk away. You know you are not happy. You know this relationship slipped out of its original path long ago. You know this person is no longer the gentle image you once held in your memory. And yet every time you try to open the door to step out, something pulls you back. Soft, but strong enough to keep your feet still. Sometimes it feels like a faint voice, telling you not to rush, telling you maybe tomorrow they will be different, telling you that if you try a little more, everything will return to the way it once was. On long, tired nights, you lay your head on the pillow and try to tell yourself an old story. That this is only a phase, that deep people love in unpredictable ways, that every relationship has highs and lows. You have become skilled at soothing yourself with words that are not true, as if you are holding onto a rope that is slowly rotting, hoping it will lead you somewhere safe. But if you listen slowly and deeply, you will realize everything is moving in a familiar circle, a circle with no beginning and no end. You love, you hurt, you hope, then you hurt again. And, strangely, you do not run, you stay, as if beneath all the wounds there is something that feels familiar, like an old room in the house of your childhood. A place you never name but always return to without knowing. Someone once looked at your relationship from the outside and asked, confused, why you do not leave. But how could they understand the things you have never spoken? They do not see the rare moments when this person becomes so gentle that you believe that is who they truly are. They do not know how tightly you have held on to those brief moments, how they have saved you through the darkest days. You do not stay because of what they make you feel today, but because of the version of them you once touched for just a moment, or at least, you think you once touched. Maybe you still remember the first evening they looked at you with warmth, as if you alone were enough. A small sentence, a hand you held, or even a moment when they quietly listened to you. Memories like these are not many, but they stay in your heart deeper than any wound. And every time the relationship falls apart, those pieces of memory return like a reminder that they were once that way, that it could return again. In truth, what holds you is not the person, but the feeling of being seen, being chosen, being valued, a feeling you longed for throughout your early years, a feeling you did not always receive fully. Not everyone stayed long enough for you to feel safe, and so now you stay with someone who hurts you, simply because on rare occasions, they give you what you once missed. The overlap of old feelings and new feelings leaves you confused between love and familiarity. You think you love them, but in reality, you love your own missing pieces. You love the hope that you will be healed through someone else. There are nights when the house is quiet and you feel the exhaustion settle into every breath. You lie there, eyes open toward the dark ceiling, and in a rare, honest moment, you know you are losing yourself. You feel a strange emptiness inside, not because of them, but because you have abandoned yourself for too long. You once believed that if you loved enough, if you were patient enough, you could shape this relationship into what you wanted. But what you did not see is that with every passing day, you stepped farther away from yourself, from the things that once made you who you are. How many times have you told yourself, just this time, just one more chance, then everything will be fine? But every time you stay, another part of you fades. You no longer say what you need. You no longer keep the boundaries you once had. You stay silent to avoid arguing. You smile to ease the tension. You accept less because you fear losing something that was never truly yours. And then, at some point, when you stand still in front of the mirror in the morning, you realize you do not recognize those eyes anymore. Eyes that once shone and once held dreams now reflect only exhaustion. You touch your face and wonder, when did I become this person? Maybe you once believed that everything happening now is because you are not good enough. That if you change something, if you try harder, this person will be different. But the truth is that you cannot save a relationship by shrinking yourself. No one can love on behalf of someone who does not want to love. And you cannot fill the empty space inside someone by giving away the parts of you that you have already lost. When you stand in this moment, caught between wanting to leave and fearing loss, you are not weak. You are facing a battle many people never have to fight. A battle with your own old emotions, with the shadows of wounds that have followed you long before this person arrived. And maybe, for the first time in years, you begin to see the truth. You do not stay because of love. You stay because of something deeper, older, and more painful. Something this story will gently touch, piece by piece, when you are ready to see yourself in the truest light. There is something quiet happening inside you that not everyone can see. The more you try to walk away, the more you feel yourself pulled back toward what is familiar. Not because it feels comforting, but because it resembles what you learned very early in life. As if your mind, even as an adult, is still searching for an old rhythm. A rhythm of affection mixed with disappointment, of warmth paired with silence, of being held close and then left behind right after. You think that is love, but in truth it is only memory. There are things your body remembers long before you can name them. Moments that touch you softly and then disappear. Someone's gaze that makes you feel safe for 1 second, but the next second you wonder if that feeling was real. When you grow up in a place where presence is never steady, you learn to read every small change on someone's face. Every breath, every frown, every moment they stay silent too long. You become skilled at predicting the emotions of others, but you forget how to listen to your own. So when you meet someone who gives you a feeling of almost safe, even if only for a moment, you cling to it. You think it is love. You think it is connection. But deep down, it is only familiarity. You are searching for a story you never got to finish. You are trying to fix a crack from the past by holding on to people who never truly stay. There was an evening, you remember, when you sat in your car, the streetlights stretching into long yellow lines across the window. You sent a simple message. Are you okay? Not because you really wanted to know, but because silence made you panic. You feared losing something you were not even sure you had. And when there was no reply, you imagined 100 reasons for their silence, but almost never the real one. They did not place you where you had placed them. In relationships like this, you survive on rare moments. One gentle smile from them is enough for you to forgive a week of being ignored. One light touch is enough to erase the times they disappeared without a word of explanation. You quietly gather every small piece of warmth they drop, as if collecting enough will finally give you something whole. But love is never built from scraps. And you know that? You have only lived with it for too long. Do you remember? There was a time they said something that softened your heart. A simple sentence. I understand. Just that. Yet you carried it for months, as if it were proof that this feeling was real. You do not hold on to the moments they hurt you. You hold on to the moments they were accidentally kind. You keep them like a small piece of paper with handwriting fading over time, but still tucked in a drawer because it reminds you of a version of them you want to believe in. And that is the deeper reason you cannot leave. Not because the present is good, not because they have changed, but because somewhere inside, you still believe in the version you imagined in the beginning. You love that version. You wait for that version to return, like waiting for an old season to come back even when every year the weather changes. How many times have you asked yourself why you feel small in this relationship? Not because you are weak, but because something inside you learned to shrink long ago. When people love you halfway, you learn to love them halfway, while giving your whole self. When people neglect you, you blame yourself for doing something wrong. You become the one who apologizes even when you did nothing wrong. You become the one who speaks softly to avoid anger. You become the one who walks gently to keep the peace, even while you are breaking apart inside. Strangely, you feel safe in the unsafe. You feel close in the distance. You feel familiar in the uncertainty, because that is what you have known. Things given fully make you suspicious, but things inconsistent make you believe this must be real. You do not realize you are loving in the way your childhood taught you, always proving you are worthy, always holding on to someone who does not want to be held, always trying to patch a hole you did not create. Then there are days when you wake up with a sense of loss without knowing what you lost. Your heart sinks like a stone thrown to the bottom of a lake. You feel like someone living in a house with no windows, hearing the wind but never knowing where it comes from. You can no longer see the line between loving and enduring. All boundaries melt, and sometimes you do not even know what you want anymore. And in moments like this, you touch a question deeper than any other. Why do I keep repeating this? Why do I keep choosing people who hurt me? Why do I feel most attached to those who never stay? The answer is not in them, and it is not in your softness. It lies much deeper, in the pieces of memory you forgot, In the nights you sat alone as a child at the end of the hallway. In the times you waited for someone to return when no one ever did. You learned to love through waiting. And you carried that lesson into every relationship after. There is nothing wrong with you. You have simply lived too long in the shadow of something that was never healed. And this is where the story continues, where you begin to see that what you call love is only the echo of something that never had a name. There is something strange that happens when you are in a relationship that hurts you more than it makes you happy. You begin to live on moments so small that anyone on the outside would never understand why they matter so much. One evening when they cook you a simple meal, or one message they send after hours of silence, is enough to soften your heart. You cling to every rare moment, as if it is proof that everything will be all right. And from those loose pieces, a very subtle kind of addiction begins to form. Addiction does not always look like something dangerous. Sometimes it comes from fragile doses of emotion that appear scattered and unpredictable. You wait for a message at night, then freeze when it never arrives. You convince yourself they are busy, that they will reply later, that nothing is wrong. But when your phone suddenly vibrates, even with a short message, you feel rescued. That sense of relief moves through every small vein in your body, helping you forget all the pain before it. You begin to live in a state of waiting. Waiting for unexpected attention, for a gentle look, for a moment when they return to the version of themselves you met at the beginning. But you do not realize that what you are waiting for is not them, but the feeling of being chosen that they give you in an inconsistent way. This is not love. This is dependence built by hope. The uncertainty makes you cling tighter to the moments when they are kind. The lack makes every small moment of tenderness feel huge. You become addicted to that feeling without knowing it. There are nights when you lie there, watching the hallway light spill through the crack in your door, listening to the wind outside, wondering why one simple sentence from them can calm every storm inside you. You know they have not truly changed. You know the good moments only appear when they want to keep you from leaving. But when they come, even late and rare, you receive them like someone thirsty, catching a few drops of rain from a dry sky. And those drops are what keep you staying, what make you believe the storm will pass, that this place will become gentle again. But what you are holding on to is not the future. It is an illusion stitched together from moments so beautiful that you believe they represent the entire relationship. An illusion that makes you forget that most of the time, you are the one enduring, not the one being loved. Have you noticed that pain leaves you numb, but tenderness makes you feel strangely excited? Everything happens in a cycle. They hurt you. You feel the loss. Then suddenly, they give you a little warmth, and you cling to them even more. Your body reacts as if it is a reward. Your mind remembers instantly. Do not leave. There will be moments like this again. You do not mean to, but you become someone who chases tiny pieces of affection, forgetting that real love never makes you treat warmth like a luxury. Maybe somewhere inside you, you feel confused. You wonder why those beautiful moments are so powerful, why one gentle moment from them has the weight of dozens of painful times, why one peaceful night can overturn a week of tears. You wonder why you crave things that should have been natural from the start. The human mind has a strange way of working. Unpredictable emotions, the kind that appear sometimes and disappear other times, make us the most dependent. They make us believe that if we try hard enough, we will get the reward. Like someone standing in front of a door that opens and closes without warning, always thinking that with enough patience, it will open the way they hope. But you do not realize that the door was never yours. And it is this uncertainty that keeps you staying even when your mind tells you to leave. You do not want to lose the feeling of being rescued every time they are gentle. You are afraid that if you walk away, you will lose the chance to feel that moment again. Even though it is only a tiny part of the whole story, the only thing they give you is hope. And hope, when given inconsistently, can become more addictive than love itself. There are moments when you look back and feel strange, that you have allowed scraps of affection to define your worth. But if you are listening to these words and feel as if someone is describing exactly what you have lived through, you are not alone. Sometimes, the things we do not dare to say are the things that connect us the most. And if something in the story touches you, you can leave a small message, a thought. Not to complain, but to see yourself more clearly by putting it into words. And if these stories feel helpful for your journey, you can stay longer by following the channel. as a reminder that you deserve to be understood. Returning to the flow of emotion, there is a moment anyone in this situation has lived through. The moment you realize you are living, only to wait for something good to happen. You are no longer living for your own joy. You live for those rare moments when they smile at you, hold you, ask about your day, or simply say they miss you. You do not dare upset them. Do not dare ask questions. Do not dare ask for more, just because you fear losing those rare moments. And so you live like someone walking on thin ice, only hoping it does not crack under your feet. But the hardest part is that you know, deep in the silence, that you deserve more. You know you need a love that is full, not a love that drips down in fragments. A love that gives you trust, not long nights wondering where they are. A love that steadies your heart, not a love that makes you track every shift in their voice. But your familiarity with instability makes it hard to step away. You know it hurts you, but it carries the shape of what you learned as a child. Affection tied to waiting, warmth paired with coldness, hope mixed with disappointment. The hard part is not leaving the person. The hard part is leaving the feeling you have learned to call love, even though it was never love at all. And when you realize that, when you begin to see that what you call love is actually a reflex from an old emptiness, a new door begins to open, not for you to walk through immediately, but for you to see that there is something else outside this loop, something you have not touched, but something you know you still have enough strength to return to. That is where the story continues, where you begin to face the manipulation you have been trying to explain for so long, where you see why the more it hurts, the harder it is to leave. When that door begins to open, you start to see something you once avoided looking at directly. You have lived so long inside a distorted reality that sometimes you can no longer remember what your true feelings were meant to look like. You think you are too sensitive, that you react too strongly, that most things are just in your imagination. Not because you are weak, but because someone has quietly planted doubts about yourself inside you. It is strange how the people who hurt you the most are often the first to make you question whether you are the problem. This story does not happen in a single day. It begins with very small details. One time you felt something was wrong. You said it, and they laughed softly, saying you were overthinking. Another time, you noticed something different in their voice, your unease rising, and they told you that you were annoying for holding on to things that were not real. Then another time, when you found something that did not make sense, they told you that you remembered wrong. You do not know when it happened, but slowly, you stop trusting your own intuition. In the quiet of long evenings, you sit next to them but feel like you are sitting beside a closed door. You try knocking gently, searching for a crack that might let you understand what is happening. But every time you ask, you receive words that push you backward. They tell you that you are too sensitive. They tell you that you are ruining everything. They tell you that you are imagining things. And slowly, you believe them. You do not see that it is not the truth. You only feel exhausted from trying so hard to be normal, so you will not upset them. There is a moment anyone who goes through this knows well. A moment when you open your mouth to speak about what hurt you but suddenly swallow the words, as if your voice is pulled back inside. You stand in front of the mirror wanting to say, "I deserve more than this," but the sentence stops in your throat. You are used to staying quiet. You are used to apologizing before you even make a mistake. You are used to doubting yourself more than you doubt the other person. There was a time you told your closest friend that you felt uneasy, that you sensed someone was hiding something from you. But when they asked, "Are you sure?" you could not answer, not because you were unsure, but because you stopped trusting your own feelings long ago. The scariest thing is not that someone deceives you, but that they make you deceive yourself. People like this have a very subtle way of turning every situation around. When they do something wrong, they say you misunderstood. When they are cold, they say you are too sensitive. When they lie, they say you remembered wrong. And when you are sad, they say you are making a big deal out of nothing. But every time this happens, you shrink a little more. You begin to adjust your memories to match their words. You start wondering if your emotions can be trusted at all. Your body, long before your mind, sensed that something was wrong. Your heartbeat quickens when their tone changes. Your chest tightens when they stay silent too long. Tension spreads from your neck to your shoulders every time you have to guess how they will react. But you ignore these signals because you are familiar with them. You think it is just how you are. But your body has never lied to you. Only your mind has been led away from itself. The longer it goes on, the more tired you become. You realize you have spent most of the relationship explaining yourself. You explain why you are sad, why you are hurt, why you need clarity. But they never truly listen, or they listen only to turn it around and make it a reason to blame you. You do not see them apologizing, but you see yourself apologizing for them over and over. And then you ask yourself, am I being too difficult? Am I really the problem? Should I stay quiet so things won't get tense? You begin to speak less, expect less, feel less. You live like someone constantly turning down the volume of their own voice just to keep the other person calm. But in that silence, you lose the inner voice that once helped you tell right from wrong, safe from unsafe, love from manipulation. The most dangerous part of manipulation is not the painful words, but the soft ones, the ones so light you do not notice what they are taking from you. A sentence like "you are overreacting" can erase your sense of safety. A sentence like "I did not say that, you remembered wrong" can make you doubt your memory. A sentence like "you are exhausting" can make you believe your emotions are a burden. And a sentence like "I did nothing, it is all in your head" is enough to make you doubt reality itself. But quietly you begin to see something else. There are moments when you know for certain you are right. You clearly remember a detail. You clearly sense a change. You clearly see something that does not fit. For the first time in a long time, you stand between two voices, their voice and your intuition. And even though their voice is still strong, familiar, and heavy, you begin to notice that your own voice is still there. It never disappeared. It was only pushed down. It has been waiting for you to return and listen. Maybe right now, as you sit with these words, something inside you is shifting. A faint but deep awareness. A feeling that you are not crazy, not imagining things, not too sensitive. You have simply been led too far away from yourself. And when you realize this, you understand why the more it hurts, the harder it is to leave. Because you are trapped in a reality where you no longer trust your own feelings. But from that realization, another door opens. A door that leads you to look at why you trust others more than you trust yourself. And why you feel lonely, even when sitting beside someone you once believed was everything. The story will continue into that place. The place where the fear of being alone and the illusion of change begin to guide every step you take, gentle but persistent, like waves wearing down stone. When that small voice begins to return inside you, what stops you is not the truth about them, but the truth about yourself. A layer of emotion rises quietly from beneath, slow like mist lifting from the surface of a lake before dawn. The fear of being alone. Not the vague kind of loneliness that comes on slow afternoons, but the hollow ache in your chest that makes you feel as if you are standing in the middle of a wide empty room with nothing to lean on. And even stranger, the fear only appears when you imagine yourself walking away. You are not afraid of losing them. You are afraid of the silence that comes after they disappear from your life. You sit in the living room in the late afternoon, the light outside turning into a soft copper shade. And suddenly you realize that even thinking about the days ahead without them makes your chest tighten. Not because of longing, just because of the emptiness. The emptiness of an emotional habit carved deep inside you. The emptiness of always having someone to wait for, to guess, to hope they will be kind for once. You do not love them as much as you think. You only love the feeling of having a place to lean on, even when that place is so unstable you must hold it with trembling hands. The fear of being alone is not a bad thing. It is something we carry from the first days we open our eyes to the world. But when that fear is hidden beneath the shell of an unhealthy relationship, it becomes a rope tying you down, making it hard to breathe, yet even harder to walk away. You have tried imagining life after stepping out of this cycle, and the first picture that appears is a dark room, a morning with no messages waiting, an evening where no one asks if you have eaten. The truth is, none of that is what you fear most. What you fear is yourself in those quiet moments. The self you have never dared to look at directly. There were times you sat on the sofa, feeling so empty, you turned the music up loud, just to drown out your own thoughts. You feared facing what inside you was quietly asking to be seen. You feared realizing that all this time you were not truly loved, You were only clinging to the illusion that you had value when you were next to someone. And from that fear, you held on to the other person like holding on to the edge of a rock while the tide rises. Not because they are special, but because you do not want to be pulled into the depth inside yourself. There are nights when you look at your phone, your fingers sliding across the screen as it lights up and fades. Lights up and fades. You feel yourself waiting for something. But when you ask what that something is, you cannot answer. You are not waiting for an apology. You are not waiting for a new promise. You are waiting for the feeling of being needed, even if only for a few minutes. Because that feeling helps you forget the emptiness you do not know how to fill. They know this well, in an unconscious but frighteningly precise way. They know that if they stay silent long enough for you to worry, then return with a soft sentence, you will let go of your anger. They know that one brief moment of warmth is enough for you to forget a whole week of distance. And while you believe you are sacrificing for love, you are actually being held by the same fear of abandonment you carried from childhood. The fear of reliving the memory of no one ever coming back for you. But there are moments in the stretch of exhaustion when you feel your feet standing at the edge of another truth. One morning, when you wake and the house feels quieter than usual, you realize you have grown used to shrinking yourself, used to not saying everything you feel, used to placing your needs last, and you begin to see a question clearer than ever. Why must someone give up so much to hold on to something so little? You cannot answer it yet, but you begin to see that the change you need is not about them. It is about how you see yourself. You start remembering who you used to be, someone who did not fear saying what they wanted, someone who laughed loudly without worrying about disturbing anyone, someone who believed in a steady love, not a tangled one. And realizing this hurts in a completely different way. Not the pain of what they did to you, but the pain of seeing how far someone has taken you away from yourself. Maybe you once stood at their door, your hand trembling as you rang the bell, hoping they would open it with eyes soft enough to calm you. Maybe you sat in your car with the interior light on, looking at your own face in the mirror and wondering when your eyes became so sad. You know you do not want to keep living this way. But when you think of letting go, your heart tightens, not because you fear losing them, but because you fear not knowing what to do with the rest of your life without them in it. That is the greatest illusion of a toxic relationship. The illusion that if you leave, you lose your last chance at love. But the truth is the opposite. You are not losing that chance. You are only losing a loop of fragile hope and constant disappointment. A loop that teaches you to accept so little that you forget you could receive much more. There will be an evening you will never forget. When you sit alone in the dark, too exhausted to cry, you know you have reached your limit. You know you cannot keep convincing yourself that one day they will become who you need. And in that dim moment, something small but powerful appears inside you. The thought that maybe what you are missing is not their love, but the return of yourself. And when that thought begins to take shape, even if faint and unclear, you will feel something you did not expect. The journey of leaving does not truly begin with closing a door behind someone else. It begins when you open the first door within yourself, the door that leads to the truth that you deserve more than this. When that thought begins to take shape inside you, the thought that you deserve more than endless waiting, something shifts very softly. Not sudden strength, not a burst of determination like in a movie, but a faint line of light slipping into the place your heart once kept closed. It does not make you stand up right away, but it makes you pause in the familiar current and ask, for the first time in a very long while, if I am no longer here, what will happen? The question no longer carries the same fear it once did. It holds a new kind of curiosity, careful and slow, but enough for you to feel that leaving is no longer the strange idea it used to be. You begin to look at everything with different eyes. The things you once tried so hard to explain suddenly look clear. Their indifference no longer confuses you. Their blame no longer sinks into you the way it used to. Not because you no longer hurt, but because you have quietly stopped believing you are the cause of every wound. One evening, you sit by a half-open window, the wind carrying the smell of damp earth after rain. You realize you have been silent for too long, and this silence is what kept the relationship going longer than it should have. You no longer want to play the role of the one who knows how to endure. You no longer want to shrink yourself to fit the expectations of someone who never truly saw you. And in these thoughts, you see clearly that what you need is not another chance for them, but a first chance for yourself. You do not leave through a fight. You leave through a silence that has reached its full weight, heavy but peaceful, as if you have heard enough, felt enough, tried enough. This is not giving up. This is seeing clearly. You begin to understand that leaving is not betrayal. Leaving is the most honest act you have ever offered your own life. But the path from thinking of leaving to actually leaving is never smooth. It feels like walking on soft ground after a storm, every step sinking just enough to make you hesitate. You know you must move forward, but every time you try, old memories return. The rare, sweet moments, the sudden, gentle sentences, the times their hand held yours just tightly enough. It is exactly how your mind has worked all this time. Forgetting the pain was always easier than remembering it. Then one night, you hold your phone, not to message them, but to stop messaging them. You read old texts, repeated apologies, promises that never turned real. You scroll through moments you once kept like tiny treasures and realize how many you had exaggerated just to comfort yourself that they still cared. You see clearly now that most of what you called memories were only fragments of something unfinished. When you press delete, your hand trembles slightly, not from regret, but because your body is used to an emotional habit that has lived inside you for too long. You sit there as the screen goes dark and reflects your face in the night. A face you have not really looked at for a long time. And, for the first time, you see that the person in the reflection is no longer begging to be loved. They are tired, yes, but they are waking up. Then comes the hardest part, separating from them completely. No contact, no signals, no returning just to see if they have changed. You think this will make you free right away, but it does not. The first days feel like walking through a room shaped by the memory of another person. Everything reminds you. Every small sound hits old places inside you. There are mornings you wake with an emptiness so sharp it almost hurts your body. You question whether this was the right decision. You must breathe deeply not to reach for your phone. Habit reaches out. Emptiness pushes you to send a short message only to feel you have not disappeared from their world. But then, you remember the nights you cried because they stayed silent. The days you tried everything to make them happy when no one did the same for you. The times you spoke your pain and received a cold stare in return. The exhaustion sliding down your spine like cold water. You remember these things to save yourself, not to blame them, but to keep yourself on your side. Those days are heavy, but they are also the first time you live with honesty. You stop bending yourself to fit someone else. You stop staying up late for a message. You stop checking if you did something wrong. You begin to hear your heart again, quietly but clearly. You feel your body relax, like someone waking from a long winter and sensing the first warmth of spring. Along the way, there will be moments you miss them so much you consider going back just to feel something familiar. But you will realize quickly that you do not miss them. You miss the version of yourself you imagined you were when you believed you were loved. And when you see this, you begin to step away from the illusion you once clung to. In the weeks that follow, what changes is not their absence, but your presence in your own life. You start doing small things you once lost the time or energy for. Making coffee the way you like it, playing the music that once brought you peace, sitting in the morning sun just to feel the warmth on your skin, writing a few lines about what you have lived through. You do not try to replace them with someone else. You are learning how to exist again without depending on anyone to feel worthy. And somewhere in those calm mornings, you notice something strange. Your heart is no longer as heavy as before. The fear of being alone no longer fills the whole room inside you. Instead, you begin to feel another kind of space. Not empty, but opening. Not lost, but steady. Not chasing someone, but returning to yourself. Leaving is not an ending. Leaving is a return. And sometimes the most painful step is the very first one that brings you back to who you truly are. One morning you wake up and the air in your room feels a little lighter. Not because something big happened overnight. Not because you suddenly became strong. It is simply that your breath no longer carries the familiar sting every time you think about them. A change so small that if you do not listen closely, you will miss it. But it is these small changes that show you are slowly stepping out of the long shadow of that relationship. You stand up and open the window. The wind comes and carrying the warm scent of sunlight still clinging to the rooftops. And you realize it has been a long time since you took a deep breath without guilt. There is no message waiting for you. No need to guess whether they are warm or cold today. No tightness in your shoulders from wondering if they will exhaust you or act gentle. There is only you, the morning, and the sound of leaves brushing outside. Strangely, there is nothing frightening in that silence. It is no longer the threatening emptiness you imagined. It feels like a room that has just been cleaned after being messy for too long. Still empty, but the kind of empty that lets you breathe easier. You begin to look back at the months you walked through, not to blame yourself or drown in pity, but to understand why you stayed so long. You see each layer of emotion you once held tightly: the fear of being left, the need to be chosen, the habit of blaming yourself, the fragile hope, all stacked on one another like old pages of a worn book. You turn each page without your heart tightening anymore. You only see how hard you tried, how patient you were. And strangely, what hurts the most now is not how they treated you, but how you treated yourself all that time. You remember the nights sitting on the living room floor, your knees pulled to your chest, holding your breath so you would not hear it shake. You remember unlocking your phone only to meet emptiness, but still telling yourself everything would be fine. You remember how you made yourself smaller, how you gave in, how you disappeared piece by piece. And in all those memories, you no longer see someone weak. You see someone who loved with everything they had, even when it hurt them. Someone who sacrificed for something they hoped would become beautiful, even when it never did. That realization softens you toward yourself. You no longer blame yourself for staying. You understand why you chose the way you did. You understand why you were afraid. And when that understanding comes, it does not bring sadness. It brings a new kind of peace. The peace of someone who finally knows how to see themselves differently. You begin to move through new days with a slowness you never allowed yourself before. You do small things, but you are fully present. Making a cup of coffee just strong enough. Cleaning your desk. Opening the door so light can touch the wall. You play old songs, not to soothe your pain, but because you like the way the melody fills the room. You are not searching for someone to replace anyone. You are finding your way back to yourself. Some afternoons you write a few short lines, not to analyze anything, but to name what is happening inside you. Then you notice something strange. The more you write, the less your hands tremble. The sentences become clearer. You no longer hide your feelings behind careful wording. You write as if you are listening to an old friend tell their story, gently, patiently, without judgment. Sometimes a wave of missing rises. Not missing them, but missing the habit of having someone to think about. You let the feeling come and go, like a breeze passing through. You do not cling to it. You do not push it away. You simply acknowledge that a part of you was tied to them for too long, and those threads are loosening one by one. Sometimes you walk past a place you once went together, and an old image flashes through your mind. But instead of hurting, it feels distant, like looking at a photo of someone who once resembled you but is no longer you. You realize you have walked far enough that the memory no longer has the power to shape your present heart. Then one day you notice something you once believed would never happen. You feel light, truly light. Light enough that you stop in your tracks, standing still in the middle of the street, wondering if the feeling is real. It is not excitement, not joy. It is the calm of no longer being pulled back to a place that is run dry. A quiet, but deep freedom. You look at yourself in the mirror that night, watching the light fall gently across your cheeks, and see that your eyes are no longer searching for anyone but you, no longer waiting for a message, no longer wondering if you upset someone, no longer trying to decode silence. You see someone who has walked a long road, tired but steady, hurt but unbroken. The freedom you feel does not come from closing a door. It comes from opening another. The door that leads back to the part of you you left behind for too long. And when you step through it, there are no fireworks, no bright spark, only a quiet clarity showing you that what you have been searching for was never someone's love. It was your return to yourself. You do not need answers from the past. You do not need an apology. You do not need to check whether they think of you. You do not need to win the story. You only need your freedom. And you found it not when they left, but when you chose not to go back. In the end, you realize something simple but true. Some loves come only to help you see the cracks inside yourself and to teach you how to mend them with your own hands. No one can bring you home except you. And one morning, A morning just like any other. You step outside, hear the wind passing through the trees, and understand that you are truly free. Thank you for staying with me until the very end of this story. If this message touched your heart, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you'll never miss the next journey we take together. Your support means the world to me.